Hello there, Wargame enthusiasts! Welcome back to Combat Mission Red Thunder, the World War II battle simulation game set in the Eastern Front in the year 1944. Long time no see, huh? I'd like to start off by apologizing sincerely and profusely for not posting anything for the last 2 months or so. It's just that life got in the way. I was sick and then there was work. And even though I managed to play a couple of games here and there, they really weren't that entertaining because they were pretty one-sided one way or the other. So you could pretty accurately predict what was going to happen from a very early point on. And that's no fun. But somehow I feel I should maybe give you a video or something. So I came up with this idea. How about I just show you the adventures of a particular unit in just one part of the battle. Thus, meet Unteroffizier Weber and his Tiger tank crew. The Tiger tank and its crew are part of a larger German operation to blunt an enemy advance from the east and prevent the Soviets from taking a number of key villages strewn across the landscape around a meandering river. The force itself is ill-prepared to take on a large number of Soviet armor due to a lack of anti-tank assets, and therefore the tank is crucial in the engagement. It has to pull its own weight and destroy as many enemy tanks as possible. Thus, Weber and his tank are positioned on the right flank on top of a hill in a thicket of woods, a position from which they should be able to spot any enemy tank coming into the open and take potshots at them. Unteroffizier Weber and his crew didn't see any action for the first 10 minutes of the battle or so, but in turn 11, in turn 12, the tank tries to move away from the artillery barrage as well as the dust cloud that formed around it. As it tries to move away, it takes a couple of direct hits, which clear off the entirety of the infantry that's been saddled on it, as well as damage its tracks, its radio, and its Nachvertigung, whatever that is. As the artillery barrage subsides by the end of the turn, the entire hill is covered with smoke and dust. Nevertheless, by the end of turn 13, our tank, though a little worse for wear, is slowly creeping back into its previous position and ready to take on whatever enemy armor is going to peek out from the forests. The situation remained constant for our Tiger until turn 20, when at the end of the turn, some more enemy artillery came our way. The first couple of shells land around the Tiger, hitting the tank's tracks and rendering it immobile. They also pulverize a number of nearby trees. Following that, a number of shells hit the Tiger dead on, including one direct hit to the top of the turret. These take out a number of components, including the radio, but don't manage to take out the Tiger entirely, and it remains somewhat combat-worthy still, though stuck in its current position. In the following turn, I rush over some infantry with a radio and put them on top of the tank to mitigate the Tiger's own lack of communication. In the meantime, the Tiger is waiting for any enemy units to appear on the horizon. A few minutes later, the Tiger finds something to shoot at. Some infantry is trying to cross the forest up ahead, so we fire a couple of shots to ward them off. The sporadic fire continues for the next couple of turns. However, as soon as the enemy figures out our position, he starts dropping down mortar fire on top of our tank. The nuisance continues for some time, but apart from peeling off some of the infantry of the Tiger's back and reducing the visibility up ahead, it does little damage. The eerie quiet continues for the next couple of minutes, until sometime later an unknown assailant takes a shot at our Tiger. Subsequently, the Tiger takes shots from several directions at the same time. Unfortunately, it cannot reciprocate for some time, since its optics are gone and it's having a very difficult time spotting whoever is shooting at it. Soon, however, the Tiger spots its prey, and both tanks fire simultaneously. The Tiger bounces the T-34's shot, but our shot lands straight on, and the T-34 is knocked out. The second shot seals its fate. After that exchange, the infantry decides that courage is the better part of valor, and starts legging it. Meanwhile, the tank's troubles are far from over. More enemy tanks are taking potshots at it, and this time the commander can't spot whoever it is that's firing. Soon enough, the fire causes casualties among the crew, and they decide that staying put is not the best choice available. But even though the tank is taking continuous fire from enemy units, it seems to be more or less intact still. Thus, our support is going to drop down some smoke near its position in order to allow the crew to get out safely and then possibly remount in the future, if the tank does hold up. Sadly, not everyone makes it out alive. Having lost their comrade, the crew decides to jump back or teleport back into the Tiger and resume operations, as the enemy's shelling continues. Soon, the tank is again back in action. It takes some time for the smoke to clear, and meanwhile, the battle rages on in the distance. As soon as the smoke clears, the Tiger spots another enemy tank far in the distance and takes a shot. Unfortunately, this one was not as effective and the tank gets away. Having lost the opportunity to nail that T-34, our tank opens fire at the raging firefight up ahead. Soon enough, another T-34 spots our Tiger amidst the fighting and commences firing. Fortunately, the Tiger bounces the shot, but is not able to reciprocate because of its broken optics. In an act of frustration, I ordered the tank to fire at the enemy T-34s blindly. It doesn't yield any results, but it feels slightly better. Since the enemy tanks are not firing back, and blind firing at enemy tanks is fairly ineffective, the tank's muzzle has been turned towards infantry in the houses up ahead. In the meantime, the T-34s spot our Tiger again and open fire. The shot bounces again, but this time the Tiger spots the enemy T-34. Alas, the first shot misses. In the next turn, loaders of both tanks feverishly prepare the next shell, and the tanks fire. The shells fly through the air, passing one another. The T-34 takes a direct hit to its main armament, probably knocking it out, but the tank is still operational. But the Tiger's luck is at an end. Though it took so many hits that pockmarked its front hull, it couldn't take another one, and the crew finally exits amongst a shelling of the enemy's guns. When the enemy fire subsides, the commander and the gunner are the only ones to make it out alive from the wreck of the Tiger. The surviving crew members then make their way into one of the defended towns and prepare to help out with the defense as best they can. As Soviet forces approach the town, our valiant crew takes part in the fighting. They take position in the attic of one of the houses and try their best to stem the tide of Soviet infantry using submachine guns. Soon, however, the defenders' forces become overwhelmed, and the gunner loses his life. Meanwhile, Unteroffizier T decides to leg it. There is nowhere to run, however, and as the Soviet troops take control of the town, our tank commander has to fight for his very life, using whatever means he has available. Even though he manages to stave off death for a while, it is clear that the German forces are withdrawing, and therefore a chance of a reprieve for Unteroffizier Weber does not exist. For him, the war is probably over. And that's the end of the story. By the end of the next turn, had the next turn been played, I'm sure that the officer would have been killed as well, seeing as he's surrounded on all sides by Soviet infantry with submachine guns. The crew had an interesting showing in the battle. They didn't inflict much casualties, with two T-34-85s destroyed and one incapacitated due to the shot to the main armament. They also managed to take out 12 of the enemy infantry, some of which I'm sure was just now with that grenade. Nevertheless, they had enormous luck bouncing enemy shells for quite a long time, quite longer than could be expected, really. And that's what made them an interesting unit to sort of show off. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. See you next time.